The Mario and Luigi Brothership situation is interesting because people are caught between two major polarizing things. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in recent memory, where you have on one hand the anti-game journal community, who immediately latched on to IGN's 5 out of 10 review, immediately called it ridiculous, immediately knew that IGN was full of shit, that this game looked great, that anybody who knew anything about Mario and Luigi or respected it at all knew this game did not deserve a 5 out of 10. And once the game actually released, we all saw the game was great, and all of those ideas were vindicated. IGN's review is one of the biggest game journal L's of the year, for sure, right? But on the other hand, you have the anti-Nintendo community, the Pretendo community, right? People who are coming out trying to say, actually, IGN has a point. Like people who are like huge fans of Paper Mario, who are desperately trying to downplay the Brothership, like no matter what. You have people like Digital Foundry making things up about the frame rate. You have people like making wild claims about the characters and story. You have people like trying to invent out of whole cloth this idea that the game is too slow paced, right? Like it took me 5 hours for anything to happen. It's just a giant cope, right? Like for me, it's really interesting kind of seeing the contrast because on one hand, you have the anti-woke people who know that the real reason IGN went after Brothership was because it was a genuinely good, fun Nintendo game that was going up against their beloved Dragon Age Veilguard. And so it had to be destroyed for that reason. And so people began to realize that like this was an example of game journal corruption. And so like it became a meme almost to make fun of IGN. Like you have those people, and then on the other side, you have like the dedicated like Pretendo audience who have to downplay everything that Nintendo puts out. You know, I've seen a couple of posts already like, IGN might have had a point. Nintendo's been going downhill lately. Echoes of Wisdom was disappointing. Like, I grew up with Zelda too. I'm used to more hardcore games than this. Like, you've seen people doing this, right? I've seen people trying this. And although like the Pretendo side isn't really getting a lot of traction, even though like nobody really cares about them, you know, I commented on like the BitBlocks video on this, like him trying to damage control Brothership. Like it had the video had like 2,000 views. Right. And he was like really going in hard on it. He was like trying to say like, no, this game is garbage. The Thousand Year Door is way better. Like he was trying to do his thing, but like when you actually think about it, when you actually look at like, you know, what people are talking about in regard to the game, like his opinion has no weight at all. Like, you know, the pit block has like lost all its credibility like years ago. But when you actually look at just how this video is received, like in the masses, when you see how people react to it, when you see like the general reception, like you can see like this is a fringe opinion that is not going to hold weight among general audiences. Because yeah, you can say Mario and Luigi Brothership is slow paced, right? That is actually true. But my thing is that isn't a bad thing because it makes the world feel lived in. You get to see a lot of characters interact in a lot of different situations. The plot gets to evolve. You get to really go on this really lengthy 40-hour long adventure, and it's great, right? I think the slower pace for Brothership was absolutely the right decision to make for this game. It honestly, like I think it's one of the best things about it. You know, the more time I spend with this game and see the characters develop and seeing the world expand and things like that. Like it is crazy how many characters join the ship shape crew. It feels like a One Piece adaptation. It's so cool. So with that in mind, with that being said, like this is a really good example of just how the Pretendo narratives about these games can't hold water in the current year. Because, like, yeah, you see people coming out saying bad things about Echoes of Wisdom or this or Princess Peach Showtime, but they can really only do this like on day one, right? The instant people actually start getting hold of the game and start forming their own opinions, if the game is genuinely good, the narrative will 100% collapse over time. I grew up like seeing, Wind Waker is a really good example, right? Where it was hated when it was first shown off. Every like game journals made like this elaborate narrative about it. People were upset, and then the game came out, and people began to realize that like, wow, this game is better than Devil May Cry. It's better than Metal Gear Solid 2. It's better than like all of these like mature PS2 games. Like it has way better animations. The characters are so expressive. It looks gorgeous. It has an amazing ending. People began to realize that Wind Waker had a lot of merit to it, even though it's not the best Zelda game, right? And I think the same could be said for like a lot of these lower budget Nintendo Switch games that have been coming out since like 2020, because that's been the narrative since that year. Because the game journals managed to establish that like this narrative that like, ooh, the Switch is on the way out, it's gonna be replaced by this year, like, ooh, and they've been doing this since New Horizons came out, right? So all these great games have come out, and Pretendos have just been doing this thing with like, like Bayonetta 3, that's bad. Cereza and the Lost Demon, that's bad. No More Heroes 3, that's bad. Like Triangle Strategy, that's bad. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, that's bad. Ooh, it's censored. Like it's just like it's just like the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 censored thing is a complete joke. But when you really see what they've been doing over the past several years, like you see this pervasive narrative, like every single time, that the new major Nintendo game is disappointing somehow. Every single time. It's like some underwhelming thing that nobody is happy with and never runs well and like, oh, you should just emulate it, bro. And then like, over time, you slowly start to see like more and more people speak out and like advocate for it. Triangle Strategy, I've heard good things about. I've always been like the biggest advocate for No More Heroes 3. Bayonetta 3, I think, is getting an audience. Like you have all these games that were hated among all these people, like start becoming more popular. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. People forget this, but that game was hated when they showed off like Cranky Kong at like the VGX. People forget this happened, but like they showed off Cranky Kong. And people were like spurging out, like they wasted time on this. They announced Cranky Kong, and like any real fan like loves Cranky Kong, loves the games, loves Donkey Kong Country in general. So like to see like so much weird, genuine backlash to that, it really just goes to show you just how like disrespectful the Nintendo audience is, right? They will go to extraordinary lengths to complain about anything for the most petty of reasons, like for having an anime aesthetic, for being a 2D platformer, for being like a Fire Emblem game, right? Like you keep seeing this over and over and over and over again, like every single time, and it's gotten to the point where it doesn't even really make any sense, right? RGT85, that this just came to mind. A while back, I think like a couple of years ago back, I think when Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was coming out, if I'm correct on that, like he released a statement saying that like Nintendo releases too many Xenoblade games. Monolith Soft needs to work on something new. Like, never mind that like this is their big thing. Never mind that like every Xenoblade game is completely different and improves on the last. Like, never mind like everything else they do for Nintendo. Like, no, they need to work on new IPs. Like, just because, bro. It's you see this a lot with people where like they come out and say like, well, where are the new IPs? Where are the new IPs? And you're just kind of like, every time Nintendo made a new IP, you saw these people like come out and try to say like, oh, that's not a new IP. That's not on par with Mario or Zelda. It's gonna bomb. It's gonna be a failure. Like every single time. And of course, like obviously, like a new IP from Nintendo is probably not going to be bigger than Mario, right? Probably. But you see the problem, right, is that no matter what happens, no matter what Nintendo does, the same people are going to come out and bitch every single time about like things for the most petty of reasons. And it really needs to, these people really need to start being denounced, because if you really hate everything Nintendo does, why are you so invested in them? If it's because you like other games they put out, why don't you play those other games? Like, why do you obsessively have to like try and push this narrative that Fire Emblem existing somehow stops your favorite thing from getting made? How many people like it's crazy. Like, I grew up in that period, like in between like Metroid Prime 3's release and Samus Returns. The 10-year like gap between that and Samus Returns, right? 10 years we didn't get like a well-received Metroid game, right? And what happened when Metroid finally came back in 2017? After all the bitching, all the complaints about Nintendo not respecting Samus or the Metroid IP or like the anniversary, like after everything they did, Metroid's back and nobody cares. After all those complaints, all that whining, all that crying, Metroid's the only Nintendo IP I care about. Like after all of that, Metroid is back, having gotten several high quality titles over the past several years. Samus Returns, Dread, Federation Force, and now Metroid Prime 4 next year. Like, Metroid is back in full force, and do these people respect that or care? No. If anything, they're doing the exact opposite, where they're doing everything in their power to try and gaslight you into thinking, well, actually, Dread was bad. It's why? Like, well, it wasn't as good as Super. That's not an explanation. I am very tired. I keep seeing this like come up, and I really do think this is like my big thing. I am very tired of people coming out and using classic Nintendo IPs in order to degrade and disrespect new ones. Because we keep seeing this, like, Mario Wonder. Like, oh, why would I play that? I want to play Mario 3. Like, Tears of the Kingdom. Oh, why would I play that? I would rather play Breath of the Wild. Metroid Dread. Why would I play that? Super is better. Like, every single time this happens. And if you were a real hardcore fan of these series, you should have already played these games already, and you should be anxious for something new. Actually, that was something back in the day, wasn't it? That like a hardcore like fans of the NES Mario games, like, oh, the 3D crap, Sunshine, 64, like these aren't real Mario games. I want a 2D Mario experience. I want an adventure like Mario 3. Okay, they put out New Super Mario Bros., which is better than Mario 3 in every single way, shape, and form. Like no, that's not what I wanted. Like, what? And now like Brothership. This is the real issue with Brothership. The real reason people are coming out against it, complaining about it, like trying to disrespect it, it's because Brothership is overshadowing Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. That's the real reason these people are upset, because their favorite childhood thing is getting overshadowed by a new Mario RPG that is better in every single way, shape, and form. Right? Like, they can't handle the fact that The Thousand-Year Door is boring, outdated, and really has nothing really going for it. Like, Mario and Luigi Brothership is better than The Thousand-Year Door, but the audience like doesn't want to admit it, because The Thousand-Year Door has been unfairly considered the greatest Mario RPG ever made for decades now, and having something like usurp it is like a really scary thing for the audience. They just can't handle it. Like, because it's not about like actually playing new games. It's not about like experiencing new things or having fun or growing with Nintendo. Like, all anybody wants to do is stagnate and just relive their childhoods over and over again. Like, the Thousand-Year Door. Oh man, it was so charming. Oh, the way Miss Mouse did the backflip after Koops like hits on her. Like, oh, like, who cares? Grow up. It's like, like you need to move on. The Thousand Year Door is not that great, bro. Not so great that like you shouldn't consume new Mario games, right? And again, like this is not a new this is not a new thing for the Paper Mario audience, right? Like I've been noticing like lately that a lot of hardcore Paper Mario fans have been like demanding a return to the RPG formula, but have never played a Mario and Luigi game. And like the realization of that has been like this really eye-opening thing for me because like seeing these people cry about Paper Mario not being an RPG while not playing the Mario RPG series that's still ongoing, like it really demonstrates these people's mindset, right? Because it doesn't matter about the actual gameplay or what the game actually is. Like what matters is that they just get a rehash of something they already like. It's pathetic, and it really does need to be condemned for what it is. A bunch of man children obsessing over the past.